When Steve Cohen bought the Mets, he came in rich. He's going to leave rich. And the question we asked ourselves is, what kind of owner will he be? We didn't realize he'd be a tweeting owner with completely asinine tweets, by the way. What we did say is his level of new owner-itis is going to really have a stamp on what the Mets season will be like. And the offseason, obviously. So we thought that they'd be a player for Bauer. They were. They didn't get him. We thought they'd be a player for JT Realmuto. They didn't want him because they didn't want to wait, so they signed James McCann. We thought they'd bring in George Springer because he makes perfect sense. They didn't. They let him go to the Blue Jays. They could really use Springer. Instead, they traded for Francisco Lindor. And we said, the new owner, there's no chance that they traded for Lindor without signing him to a long-term deal. There's just no chance of doing that. So they bring in Lindor. They sign him. Remember, he had dinner with Lindor, served him ravioli or had ravioli, whatever he had. They had a great time, became best friends. Not, at least in Steve's mind, they're best friends. Lindor signs the huge deal, which I already forgot what it was. I want to say $12,340, but that sounds like Tatis. All the deals are not in my head at the moment because my head's blurry because it's 5:30 in the morning. Yes, it is, at least where I am. So Steve Cohen starts the season. Same old things are happening. The Mets are, in my opinion, underperforming. Their expectations, not mine. Their pitching staff is Jacob deGrom and 4 rainouts. Now, you could say Stroman's been fine if you want, but I'm not going to. Syndergaard's coming in June. That'll be fun. Good. How's Lindor doing? It's April. Everyone be calm, but no one's calm in New York. Steve Cohen's on Twitter. Steve Cohen's reading the back page of the paper. And will Steve Cohen do anything where we can yell at the top of our lungs, new owneritis, new owneritis, new owneritis? Well, he got the itch. And yesterday, he scratched it. 23 games into a season with Lindor hitting, probably, he's not even hitting his weight. I think he's 0 for his last 21. I think he's hitting 163. I have no idea what he weighs. I bet he weighs a little more than 163. It's very bad if you're not hitting your weight in baseball. Very, very bad. You have to hit your weight. It's like a rule. We used to call it the Mendoza line, which is 200 after a player who hit below 200 or at 200 or a little above 200. You had to hit above 200. We changed that. We always said, hit your weight, young man. And we did that because let's say you had a player who was a little overweight and he's coming in at 285. And you say, if you don't hit your weight, we're going to send you down. So you have 2 choices. Either lose some weight, which you're going to do in the Florida summer when we play outdoors, or start hitting better. Of course, no one cares about average anymore. It's not cool. Only care about home runs, launch angles, keeping Theo up at night, trying to make the game better. So Lindor's not hitting. Steve Cohen, after 23 games, says, I've got the perfect plan. I know exactly what we're going to do. Sandy. He called him up, picked up his phone, dialed him up. Sandy. Not Olivia Newton-John. Just Sandy. The president of business operations and baseball operations for the New York Mets. Remember, they have no GM. Theo's working for baseball, not for the Mets. Wink, wink. What are we doing? Sandy said, what do you mean? We're watching a game against the Cardinals today. Well, what are we doing about the hitting? What do you mean? Well, Chili Davis is doing a terrible job. Shouldn't we fire him? What are you talking about? We're okay, Steve. It's April. Well, what about the assistant guy, Tom Slater or something? He sucks too. Well, no, he doesn't. These guys were our hitting coaches. There's nothing wrong with our approach. They haven't lost the clubhouse. They're doing their work. We're just struggling right now. Well, that's absurd. I'm the owner. I want changes right now. What about Rojas? Should we get rid of Rojas? Get rid of the manager? What are you, Samson? It's April. We're not getting rid of the manager right now. Well, we got to do something. No, we don't, Steve. This is what baseball is. You have to have patience, because if you don't have patience, you will end up making moves that will be baffling to the clubhouse, upsetting to the clubhouse, and will not lead to wins. What about my friend Jeffrey? Won the World Series in 2003 after firing a manager. That's true, Steve. But then they chased Amy the rest of the time, and it worked that year, but never again. Well, it could work like that this year. Steve, you have 3 to 5 years to win a World Series. You cannot show this amount of panic. Are we good here, Steve? We're good. Bring. Next day. What are we doing? Steve? Yeah, it's Steve. What are we doing? Who are we firing? Nobody. We're fine. Nope. We're not getting runs for DeGrom. And I agree it's upsetting. I agree Diaz stinks. I didn't make that deal. Brody Van Wagenen did. I know that's not his name. I say that as a joke. BVW. Brody Van Wagenen. Familia closed the game. Why don't we use him as a closer? Steve, I'm going to need you to take a step back from the telephone, because you're being emotional. You're being reactive. We are running this team analytically. We are running this team intelligently. We have built this team to win over the next 3 to 5 years. You've given us the resources. Let them work. No. Fire somebody right now. Steve, we're not. All right. Bye. Next day. I'm telling you, this is exactly how this happened, by the way. Sandy, it's Steve. Yes, Steve. We got to do something. Something. They stink. And we have DeGrom going against the Cardinals. Samson, with his nothing personal pick of the day, is probably going to pick against DeGrom again because we can't score for him. We need new hitting coaches. Steve, you're killing me. Fine. The Mets fired their hitting coach yesterday and their assistant hitting coach. 2 hitting coaches. Not 1, 2. What a panic move by Steve Cohen. So do you want to know how it really happened? I think Steve Cohen called Sandy. And he said, Sandy, I want to make a change. I want new hitting coaches because we're not hitting. And Sandy tried for 1 second. Steve, really? Sandy, that's what we're doing. Okay. I don't think Sandy's got the energy. Because the old Sandy Alderson, there is not one scenario where he would fire a hitting coach. Coco, when he comes back from his strike, which I don't think he ever will, but if he ever does, I'm going to want to know one thing. Has a Sandy Alderson-led team in Oakland, or even when he was with the Mets under the Wilpons, has he ever fired a hitting coach, pitching coach, or manager before the clock struck May? Although it is May. Strike that. Before the clock strikes May the 4th, be with you. I'm going to say no, because that's not how Sandy rolls. He understands the rhythm of baseball, and that sometimes it's going to get you. But at the end of the day, it is incredibly important to have a consistent approach with your players so you don't lose the clubhouse. I don't think Sandy was willing to fight the fight. I think that heads had to roll, and he chose the hitting coach. Way to go. So does it matter to you that the Mets scored 5 runs and lost to the Cardinals 6-5? And that then they fired their hitting coach after scoring 5 runs? Someone asked me that on Twitter, I think, and the answer is no. When you're firing your hitting coach, you decide before a game starts that you're going to do it after a game. You likely decide a few days in advance of saying it to anything and to anybody, because you are getting your next hitting coach ready to be there for the next game. It's not like you have a week in between games. You have hours in between games. We always were concerned when we were firing coaches that what would happen if we would score 10 runs and then fire the hitting coach, or fire the pitching coach after a pitcher throws a shutout, or fire a manager after the manager wins a game. And our answer to the owner always was, you cannot plan one game in advance only. You can't make a decision after a game. You have to think about your decision, make your decision, and then implement your decision. And if scoring 5 runs in one game is going to change your decision, definitionally, you've made the wrong decision. The humor of it would be for an owner to call the GM after a 5-run game, a loss though, and say, stop, keep chilly. We're good. No. Decisions were made way before they could have scored 20 runs. I think it's brilliant. Coca, he's back. You're not mad anymore, Coca? Are you jealous? If you're watching this on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, you're going to see different backgrounds now throughout the next little while. Why not? Sandy Alderson fired a hitting coach on May 27th in 2014. That's not May 4th. That's another 3 weeks. That's no longer early. That's late. Remember we talked about that? Was it on a mailbag episode or was it on a different show I was doing? I can't remember, where I talked about what early is, what late early is, what mid is, and then early late. When you're in the end of May, it's not early anymore.